All right, hello everyone. So we are going to go ahead and get started today. So we have David Brown back with us again, and today he's going to be talking a little bit about the Kpax Liberty Blocks and everything that comes with that, and kind of give you a brief overview. And we'd love for this to be interactive as well. So if you guys have any questions throughout the webinar, feel free just to drop them in the box, and David will get them answered for you. So David, do you want to take it away?
Yep, thanks, Summer. Again, my name's David Brown. Thank you guys for joining the ins and outs of Kpax. This has been a great series of webinars for us because we do have lots of dealers, lots of partners that want to know more about Kpax, and this kind of gives us an opportunity to explore the different aspects of the software, how you can use it, what are some of the best practices, best ways to be successful. There are dealers that are joining today that are not using Kpax also, so we want to let you guys know that, hey, thanks for joining, and we want to give you kind of an overview of maybe some of the reasons you would want to start using Kpax. And as Summer said, today we're going to talk about the Liberty Box. And for those of you wondering, okay, what is a Liberty Box, and why is something called a Liberty Box? So I have one with me here. This is what it is. So this is an option for those of you who are not aware. This is an option for installing the Kpax software on your customer environment. Now, traditionally, you would do that through a piece of software, an executable file that's going to go on a server or a workstation. And as we all know, as we've talked about in previous episodes, servers and workstations are getting fewer, and those situations where we can install those are getting less and less opportunistic. So what I mean by that is we have installing this on a laptop or installing a Windows agent or a piece of software on a laptop is not ideal. That laptop is going to come and go. It's going to go home with that employee. It's going to go home or offsite. It's not going to be connected to that network. So the alternative here is the Kpax Liberty. So this stays connected to the network via Ethernet ports. It's got them on both sides so that you can plug this in on the back. I kind of piggyback it on an MFP that you're installing or that you already have installed in the customer environment. And it's going to go out not just on that MFP, but across the network and bring in information on all the print devices there. So when you don't have a good workstation, again, you've got an environment full of laptops. When you don't have a server, and again, small customers, small to medium-sized businesses, a lot of what they're using today are all cloud-based applications. You know, Microsoft 365s, everything that's, their CRMs, their even printer, everything is cloud-based. And so there's not a cloud, or there's not a server on site to be able to install something on. So that's where Kpax really shines in giving you an option so that you can install the agent at the environment. It stays connected. You have meters, supplies, maintenance information day in, day out. You're not chasing that. You're not wondering why the agent went down. So I'm going to start sharing my screen.
And this is not to be confused with a Raspberry Pi as well. That's the one thing I remember from my training. David actually trained me whenever I was a new hire at ACDI, and that's one of the things that stuck with me that he made sure that I knew about.
That's a great point, Summer. And you're right, it's not a Raspberry Pi. It's not even, it doesn't run an OS at all. So this is not running an operating system. It's firmware that connects to the cloud. So what you're seeing now is the Kpax interface, and we're going to kind of take this right from the beginning. You're going to set up your customer on Kpax, and in this case, we've set up a very prestigious customer, David Brown Incorporated. As far as fake customers go, this is probably one of the least famous, but most reputable that you'll ever run into. So we've set up David Brown Incorporated, and we've got an agent set up as well. And so when I go into that agent, we're going to look in here and we're going to see that we've got our Liberty Box. It's running, it's communicating. So this is a great screen that I can use to make sure that my agent's staying connected. And with a Liberty Box, it almost always is. It's giving me date and time stamps of when that's connected, showing me how that's set up. It's telling me I'm broadcasting across the network. I've got a scheduler for how often it's running discovery scans, meter scans, supply scans, and so forth. And I can see my device on here. So for those of you who are new or just starting with Kpax, you can set up your customers here. You can manage the Liberty Box or the Windows agent. You're going to set up your customer. You're going to see the device in there. And yes, I've got a little Epson EcoTank 2760, really, small inkjet, kind of your typical small office, home office printer. And for those of you who are asking, saying, hey, what information do you get off a printer that small? I am getting all my meters. I'm getting all my cartridges on 1% increments. So I'm showing some very granular information. Yes, it is an inkjet, it's a color. And so all the information I would need as a service provider, if I had a service provider other than myself in my home office, to be able to let me know when supplies need to be refilled, or if I were billing myself for managed print on a cost per page, I could do that as well with my mono and color. And so I said, I live in Kentucky. We have allergies here. I have allergies. So it's that time of year, and I'm sure where most of you guys are, the trees are blooming and things. So I've got a little of that going on. So please excuse that. So we've got our device.
David, I know I have a white car, and my car looks yellow right now.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, it couldn't decide if it wanted to be spring, but now this last week or so, it's really come out. So as we said in the warm-up or introduction, we're going to take a closer look at the Liberty. So I have a Liberty set up for this account. And this is what my Liberty interface looks like. So I can find this going on the network, discovering this Liberty box. This one's already configured, obviously, but if it were not, I would see blank spaces here where it would ask me for my server address, which again is acdi.kpax.cloud. For those of you who are already using Kpax with us, you're going to have a little bit different server address. It's going to be your dealer name probably, and .kpax.cloud most likely, and you're going to get a unique PUC code to set up with this Liberty box. So we would enter that here. There'd be a confirm modification button, and we would hit that, and then all we'd have to do is activate this, and this is going to start collecting information on the print devices on that network. So really easy to set up. You can actually do this portion in your office. So you can plug it into the network at your office. You can go ahead and put your server address, go ahead and put your PUC code in. If you've got service techs taking this out to install it, you can pre-configure it. They can go out and install it. And all they have to do once it's plugged in is get in here and select activate, and it's going to start that collection process. So there are a couple cool things about the Liberty box that I want to point out. There's a settings menu here as well. So if I've got this set on broadcast, as we saw earlier, and all that means is it simply says, go out and grab everything on the existing network as you find it. Now, some of you are saying, well, what if we have bigger networks or multiple subnets? What if we've got all our printers on a certain subnet? And in that case, I can put in an IP address range here. Now, this is in the Liberty box, but it's also, I'm going to go back to Kpax. It's also in the agent screen here. So I can always modify this in my parameters as well. I can switch it out and put in an IP address range as I like, and that will communicate with the box and update that. So this can all be done remotely, which is another great thing about the Liberty box. There's so much that you can do and configure remotely and make your life easier. Remote tends to make our lives easier. So I'm going to leave it on broadcast because for my home office, that's going to be the best thing. Summer, do we have any questions? Were you about to say something?
Yeah, I was just about to come in. We did have a question come in. It was on that screen that you had turning the Liberty box on and off. Someone wanted to know what Liberty box is sleeping, what that meant for the current state.
All right, so yeah, current state. Liberty Box is sleeping. So it's only going to be active it's going to be active again. It's going to connect in about 4 minutes or just under 5 minutes, and it's going to process that scan cycle. So it's going to do all the operations that we've told it to within the scheduler. So it's going to check and see, okay, do we need to run another discovery scan? And if it's been over 4 hours since it ran a discovery scan, it's going to do a new discovery scan. If it's been an hour since it did meters, it's going to do a new meter scan, and so forth, and on down. So it's communicating every 10 to 15 minutes. It's probably going to do an alert scan every time. Again, this is completely configurable by you. You can set up how often you want these schedulers to take place. So you can trigger these down to, the hour, 1 hour on most of the discovery. Alerts is a little different. You can go down to 15-minute intervals. That's if you have a customer that's, let's say they're 3 hours away and you've got to dispatch a service tech and you want to know immediately if something's happening with that machine, if it's got an error code or any sort of failure, you want to know about that immediately or as close to immediately as you can. So you'll get that in that subsequent scan. Great question. So when it says Liberty Box is sleeping, it just means it's not performing any of those scans currently.
Awesome. Thank you, David.
Yeah. Great question. We talked about the settings menu. On the administration tab here, there's some nice things. So the first thing that I'll point out is you see that there's a Wi-Fi network name that's called Kpax Liberty. So that the Liberty features the ability to have a Wi-Fi network. So when you plug it in at the customer environment, for 5 minutes, it's going to have a Wi-Fi connection. That means if you're a service tech, as we said, if you pre-configured it, you're taking it out, all you need to do is activate it. They can locate this page on their phone just by selecting their Wi-Fi settings, finding the network that's called Kpax Liberty. You can name it whatever you want. This is a open text field, so you can name it anything. Finding that desired Wi-Fi network, selecting it's going to bring up this page, give them the option to select that activation button. So they're not going to need to trouble the customer with, hey, can I get on your laptop or can I connect to your Wi-Fi or whatever. They can do it right from their phone. So that's something that makes installing these units really, really easy. There are some settings that you can change too, the DNS settings, but the main things I want to point out are you've got a restart button. So if you need to restart the Liberty, or if you want to pull this Liberty out of the environment for some reason, let's say, I know we all hate to think about it. Sometimes we lose customers. So if we lose a customer, we want to go pull this out and put it in another customer, or the customer goes out of business, or whatever the reason, you can reuse these Liberty boxes in new customers. So you can pull it out. We actually have dealers that use these for print studies and assessments. It's very easy. It's non-intrusive. They go plug in the Liberty. They get the page volumes for a month or two. And then if they want to leave the Liberty in for management, they can, but they could also pull it out and go and install it somewhere else for the next print study. So some really nice built-in features that can be added. So that's a look at the Kpax menu. So Summer, let me know if we have any other questions on the Kpax menu. Otherwise, I'm going to go back into the Kpax software interface and go back and look.
We're good right now, David.
All right, perfect. So we can look at, we see we've got our devices. Once we have our devices, we're going to want to set up rules. So this is something that I get asked about quite a bit, is what does Kpax do from a notification standpoint? How do I set up, how do I know when toner's low, when there are error codes? So I want to spend the last half of our session kind of going through some of the rules and how to use those. So this is my list of rules. I've got a couple set up here. I'm actually going to set up another one while we're on this session. So I'm going to set up another low supply rule because I'm not, as you guys saw, I'm not going through supplies super fast. So I'm going to take this down to 10% on all my supplies because that gives me plenty of time. You saw I'm going down at 1% increments. So 10% on one of these Epson Eco tanks is plenty of time for me to go and get new supplies and be able to put those in. If I've got specific requirements on here, if I want to filter this, so some of you guys who are Canon or Kyocera or Konica dealers, and you want to just limit these to manufacturers, you can filter and limit these rules to manufacturers. So that's a nice thing that you can do. If I wanted to limit this to just Epson devices, if I had other things and just wanted to apply it to the Epson devices on here, I could. As it is, I don't need to do that. Generally, I just want to see anything. And again, I only have one device, so I'm going to go with 10% with no filters. So then it's going to give me this. It's going to say, what action do you want to take or do you want to have happen when these criteria are met? So 10% remaining on any of these cartridges. So I can have an email sent, I can have a notification sent to an FTP folder, or I can edit a custom field. And I'm going to pause right here. So within Kpax, we have the option to create custom fields. So I could create a custom field called low supply, and I could have that edited to say yes or no, or it could give me a date or time of when that happens. So I could create just about any number of workflows. It's almost infinite, the number of workflows I can create and how I want to use this. But generally, when you think about editing a custom field, just think about working within the Kpax system. So I'm not sending an email, I'm not hitting a hot folder, I'm just working within the Kpax system. And custom fields are something that our team can help you set up. They can help you build out these workflows. They're very knowledgeable on that. And that's probably something that we'll cover in a future episode, is what are the most popular workflows? How are people using them? The most popular custom fields, that type of thing. So stay tuned for that. It's probably coming in one of our future episodes. But for now, we're going to use a fairly standard workflow, and that is sending something via email. Most of us still use email. It's very easy, and we can get notifications on that. So I'm going to put my email address in here because I want to get these notifications when my supply level's low. And I'm going to create a subject line. And we'll just call it low supply. Now I can add a rule summary. All that's going to do is let me know what triggered the rule. And I can add a comment. And if I want to put, this is something we see customers or, they're putting the contact information, they'll put, they might put a location or a central contact, a shipping address, any number of things here. But this is just a comment section that can be used kind of as a notes for that specific customer if you're setting this rule at the customer level, or anything that's going to help fulfillment. So again, that's just something that is there to help. I can add a list of files as well. So what's a list of files? It's going to give me the option to create a CSV. So if I want to create a name for it, and I like low supply detail. I've used it before because it's auto-populating, as you saw. I'm going to use it again because it's hard to beat that one. So I've got fields in view. Now I'm going to remove everything just to show you how we can set this up. So I'm going to see in my view, I want last updated, date and time. I want the account. I want the manufacturer, the model, the serial number, and I like IP and MAC address just for notifications. And because I'm doing supply, I'm going to go black, cyan, magenta, yellow, and maybe I'll get a machine meter. So I've got these fields. If I want MAC address above IP address, I can just grab these and move these. So once I get that set the way I want it, I can add it. Now I see I've got a file here. And the only other thing I've got here is something called delaying action. Now it's a little bitty switch here, but it has big implications. So for a lot of us, we want to get let me start all over with that sentence, because sometimes sentences just need to be backtracked and they need to be begun again. So if I don't trigger this switch, what this is going to do is it's going to send me a notification as soon as that condition's met. The minute that that scan tells me that that cartridge level has reached 10% or below, I'm going to get that email right then and there. If I trigger this delaying action, it's going to say, how often do you want to receive this? And I can receive these. If I just want to work all of my supplies to be shipped out daily, maybe I want these to come in at 7 in the morning. I can add that. So I can stop off, get my coffee. I know when I get to the office to do the shipping of these supplies, that information is going to be waiting for me in my inbox. So I can validate that. Now I've got a trigger to know, okay, this is going to happen every day. All of the devices that have reached the level where I want to be notified. Now I only have one device, so I'm probably not going to get that very often. But anytime one of those 4 cartridges do, I'll get a notification. So this is great if you're managing, if you've got 100 customers and you're just constantly bombarded with emails. You can just keep all those notifications, get them once a day, process the ones you need, wait till tomorrow, do the next batch that hit the following day. So really makes it nice. One of the questions I often get is, every time it scans, does it tell me that if it's below that criteria, does it give me a new notification? No, it's going to give you one rule notification when it hits that criteria, and that's it. So you're not going to get your email bombarded with these things. You're just going to get one notification. And once that's triggered, let's say you don't get to that email for a few days, you can go in your devices and you can, in details, it's going to tell you the rules that have been triggered and when they were triggered. So this one I had a low supply back in January. So on one of the previous rules that I created. So I've got that date and timestamp. I've got that kind of journal of information, so I can always go back and reference it. So you're not just depending on, hey, I've got to go back in my email and find this. Nope, that information's stored here in the device view. Some of the other rules that we have, we just went through in detail, probably the most common, which is low supply level. We also have the ability to notify you on maintenance parts. So this is your waste toner, your maintenance kit, anything that has a percent declination on the parts, you're going to be able to trigger those. We'll take a quick look at what we've got in here. You've got your drums, your transfer kits, developers, all your waste toners. You even have stapler units. So a lot of options here on what you can have reported. We also do technical alerts. So this is anything that's going to hit the LCD panel or the system memory. This means that if you have specific error codes that you want to have or to be notified on, and this is one that I would really recommend, especially those of you who are, you have some lead manufacturers that you use, filtering these by manufacturer, because your Canon error codes are going to be different than your Kyocera error codes, which are different than your Konica error codes. So picking and choosing those top error codes to be notified on for that particular brand is huge. So that's definitely one I would always recommend, filtering that by manufacturer. The other rules we have, if the agent or the device is inactive for a period of time, you can be notified. And that's, again, probably one of the biggest plagues in this space is that agents go inactive. They drop off, they go stale, whatever you want to call it. And there's a lot of different slang that applies to agents dropping off, and a few of those I can even repeat on this webinar. So if they drop off, you'll get a notification when that time period happens. Hey, the agent's no longer reporting, and that just gives you a heads up. As soon as you want to know, you can contact that customer and go remediate that issue. Maybe you need to reinstall the agent. Maybe you need to have a new workstation or have a different workstation to put that on, a lot of these things go stale or drop off because somebody wiped the server, somebody decommissioned the server, somebody, as we said earlier, carried their laptop home and stayed there for 2 weeks, whatever the case may be. So you'll get those notifications. New device. So one of your customer goes out to Costco and picks up 7 new inkjet printers and connects them to the network. That happens. So you can get a notification. Hey, we see some new devices on the network. That lets your sales team know, what do we want to do? Do we want to add these to a support agreement? Or if your competitor went in and sold your customer something, you can be notified on that. You can also be notified when the supplies are changed. So seeing those supply changes, you shipped them a supply, and to know that it didn't end up on Craigslist, which is always nice. They're not, selling the supplies that are part of your contract on Craigslist and then asking for more two months later. So it just gives you a checks and balances to know, here's what's happening, the new supplies in there, everything looks good, and that the parts are changed. So these are probably the most commonly requested rules. These are the ones that are in our menu, so you can set up a ton of notifications, get exactly the information you want from Kpax so that you can make actionable decisions, recommendations, and do the support fulfillment that you need. Summer, do we have any questions?
We do not as of right now, but for everyone on, feel free to send questions if you have any.
Perfect. And I'm going to just wrap up there. So we've gone through the Liberty Box. We took a deep dive into that. Again, the Liberty boxes are available through ACDI. We can get you these. You can also brand these with your own dealer logo here. So you can see that. That's a nice little piece of social engineering that you can do in order to, if the customer 5 months later goes and looks and says, okay, what is this box on the back of my MFP? Then they see your logo and then, okay, it's part of our managed print program. So that's kind of puts their mind at ease and keeps questions to a minimum. But other than that, we're going to wrap up here. We're right at the 30-minute mark. And so thank you all for joining. Again, we'll have another episode coming in a couple weeks, so look for that. And until next time, thank you guys all for your questions, for your attention, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Awesome. Thank you, David. And thank you to everyone for joining as well. And if you have anyone that did not get to join, we do record all of these webinars as well and post them onto our ACDI YouTube channel. So you can expect that up there in 1 to 2 days. So feel free to let anyone know who didn't get to join. And thank you guys again so much for joining, and have a great rest of your week. Bye, David.
Thanks, Summer. Appreciate it.